Welcome back, Shalloners. Well, it's still Pride Month, and before Pride Month wraps up, I want to talk about something that a lot of people who are out celebrating Pride have had to deal with: bullying. Bullying, trauma, shitty childhoods, even worse middle school and high school adolescent experiences. But obviously, the gay community is not the only sector of the population who's undergone bullying. People of color, Jewish people, just women in general, right, ladies? I bet there's been some mean girls at your school who called you a slut for pretty much no reason. And it's not just bullying I want to talk about today, it's getting past any kind of trauma. So we're going to break it down and delve into what scientific psychiatric research has to say about the best empirical ways to move on from bad things that have happened in your life and leave it behind for good. Right? But first, I just want to remind you guys that if you have a love question of your own or a question about anything else, find me on the Instant Go app. My username is ShallonXO and click chat to get connected. Also follow me on Instagram at ShallonXO and be sure to listen to my podcast, Girl on Top, every place you find podcasts. And on the podcast, we do short dives answering the best questions that you guys submitted to me over the course of the week. It's really fun. So bullying. I was lucky enough that I wasn't bullied like a lot. Like there was blips here and there, but for the most part, I had a pretty chill upbringing. I went to nerd schools and we were all nerds. And so no one was picking on anyone else because we were all nerds. But that is definitely not the experience for most people. And I am actually especially horrified by bullying because that was so contrary to my experience. I just cannot fathom how that would have shaped me. And it's wrenching that people have to go through it, that young people have to go through it. It's also frustrating that adults claim they themselves are being bullied in whatever situation they're in. I remember I watched The Real Housewives of Orange County because that's where I'm from, and I will probably end up on that show at some point. And one of the women, Alexis, she's like, "You're bullying me, you're bullying me." And the women were like, "You're a grown ass woman. You came to this dinner on purpose. You can get up and leave whenever you want. That's not what bullying is. Or maybe we don't like you and we're calling you out on things, but that's not bullying. Cyberbullying. It's you can log off, actually. As an adult, you can not post things, you can log off. But bullying that I want to talk about is the kind that happens to people who can't get away from it. Students, children, people in small towns. Don't you think most people who being bullied in school would leave if they could, right? And that's the difficult part, is you feel trapped. You feel powerless. You feel like you have no agency, no control. And what's even worse is the long-term effects of this. And I mean, people who've been bullied, it's like they did 2 tours in Nam. You talk to them about it and it's like the PTSD and it's my heart just breaks. So today I want us to unravel how we get past that. And I've actually done a lot of research into this because I was researching how to get over broken hearts. And the methodology is very, very similar. And it was a study that came out recently. I think it was the University of London that did it. I could be wrong. Who cares? It was somebody. And they tried various different methods to help people deal with something bad that happened. And in this case, it was a breakup. And the number one tactic that worked is the person telling themselves that their ex wasn't that cool anyway. That was the number one tactic that works. The other tactics were accept that you're still in love with them and you will be forever, or tell yourself that you're probably going to get back together with them. And I think there was something else, but it was a kind of a random thing that nobody does. So yeah, they found overwhelmingly it is better if you lower the significance of an event in order to get past it. What does that mean? How do we do that? Because I know what you're thinking. If you're looking back on a bullying situation, a sexual trauma, it's oh, I'm just supposed to pretend it's not a big deal? No. But we're going to get to that. Let's start at the beginning. I'm basing all of this, not all of this, but a lot of what I'm about to tell you on a series of articles from Dr. Alex Lickerman. Would you not kill for that name? Lickerman? Alex, you want to get married? And he wrote a book called The Undefeated Mind, and it's about how to create what he calls an indestructible sense of self. And his impetus for writing this was his own bullying experience in 7th grade. He was bullied by anti-Semites. How 1942 is that? Oh no, it's a Jew. Really? You've never seen or met a Jewish person? Branch out, guys. Bully left-handers, like me. Come after me, I fucking dare you. Like, it's so pedantic. But so he really experienced this, and he told his story, and his bullying and the trauma of that influenced the entire rest of his life. And when he was going to medical school, he got into Buddhism. And in Buddhism, they're like, you can change your past, you can change your future and your present, and you can change your past through the power of shifting your thinking. He's like, how do you change your past? And one thing they encouraged him to do was to analyze his role in the bullying. Now, I know, Shallon, how could you possibly tell us to blame ourselves for our rapes, our boyfriend who beat us, our bullying situation? Not at all what I'm saying. There is a difference between looking at how you helped get to a bad place and it being your fault. Huge difference. Huge difference. A girl that I spoke with the other day on Instago, she's like, I got raped 8 months ago and I don't know how to trust guys. I don't know how to get over it. It's not something I want to talk about, but I've been there. And I understood where she was coming from. And I'm like, for me, I started getting over it when I did a full autopsy of the situation, when I really threw a light on it. And I was like, what role did I have in this? And I'm not talking things like my dress was too short, I was asking for it. No. Things like I didn't listen to my gut instinct when it told me to get away from this person. I didn't listen to myself when he asked me out and I didn't want to go. Instead, I listened to the mob, to the riffraff, who were like, but he's so popular. He's the frat president. Oh my gosh, why would you not go out with him? Okay. I suppressed what I knew. When I went out on the date, I didn't want to drink. Oh, come on, let's do shots. Okay. I suppressed what I knew. Let's go back to your house, watch some TV. I didn't want to. None of those things should have added up to what happened. None of them. But when I look back, the reason I was caught in this loop and I couldn't get past it for a lot of reasons, I mean, obviously there's a whole bunch of reasons that things like that kind of stick with you. But a big part of it was I felt powerless to prevent it from happening again and then I realized it's because I hadn't learned from it. And like in my mind, I was like, I shouldn't have gotten myself in that situation. And I was like, well, I was on a date. Am I not supposed to go on dates? Like, but then I broke it down into smaller pieces. And I'm like, no, here's where I denied my intuition. Here's where I didn't listen to myself. Here's where I let someone gaslight me. And I fucking knew better. And that was a turning point in my life because I'm like, never again. I don't care if it's unpopular. I don't care if it's impolite. I am listening to me. And the only other time I didn't listen to my intuition after that, it ended in divorce. It's unfortunate I had to learn that lesson the hard way again, but I did. And now I know it like I know it like I know it. So how does this relate to a bullying situation? Well, one thing Dr. Lickerman said is he looked back and he felt like he was very complicit in what happened. Not that that's an excuse for his classmates' behavior, but like when he felt threatened, when he felt like people were about to bully him, he ingratiated himself with them. He put up with it. He allowed them to be teased. He maybe sometimes made the jokes first so to avoid them attacking him, and he put up with it. Never once, he said, did he stand up for himself. And that's the thing that stuck with him. That is the root of the trauma, the shame of that we didn't protect ourselves, that we didn't do anything, that we just let it happen. Now, obviously, in like a rape situation, a lot of us do try to protect ourselves. A lot of us do fight back. Doesn't always make a difference. So I don't mean in that sense, but like Dr. Lickerman was saying, he's like, I had a victim mentality. I've talked a lot about victim mentalities and how it can be catastrophic for your life and certainly for your relationships. And he's like, I realized that was not the first instance of my victim mentality. I'd had instances of it kind of my whole life. And I was doing it because I was getting an emotional payout from it. Attention. I would use it to manipulate people into protecting me when I felt threatened so I didn't have to. I was using it to deflect responsibility or blame. the pity thing, remember? We've talked about that. And he's like, when I had that epiphany that like, I had a hand in I was my own co-conspirator. I was the co-architect of my own misfortune in some ways. He's like, I didn't expect to feel better, but I did. Because now I had something I could work on. I had what I didn't feel like I've had from this situation, which is power. What do I always say? We can't change what we don't acknowledge, right? And as horrifying and also just deeply unfair it is to look back at our traumas and the things that have been perpetrated against us and have to ask ourselves the most galling question of all, which is, how did I help to get us there? I know. Believe me, I know. Believe me, I know. I know. But once we can get over that feeling of injustice, there's awakening there. There is knowledge there, and there is power there. Knowledge is power, like the old saying goes. So once we can do that, we can do what Dr. Lickerman did. He said that, he was able to change the significance. How is just being aware of that able to change the significance? Because like he said, he noticed other victim behaviors. After the bullying, like as he went on with his life, he was playing the victim in his roles with his girlfriends. He was playing the victim in medical school. The teacher just doesn't like me, and that's why I can't do well in this class. He's like, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. I was in complete control of myself. I was an adult. I was acting like I was still that 7th grader who couldn't leave and couldn't do anything, but I actually was in control of every single aspect of my life. Every single one. And that's something I think you guys need to do. And this is what I did. And this is what I continue to do when I find myself getting in a victim loop about just a million things. Getting divorced. Like, when we're in our victim loops, it's like, and then the bus door shut before I could get on it. Why is this happening to me? We will find anything. We will find anything. So I literally make a list of all the things in my life that I'm in control of. And you know how long that list is? Infinite, because I'm literally in control of everything. How much money I spend, how I wear my hair, what food I eat, what clothes I wear, how much money I make, what city I live in, who I date, who I talk to on the phone, which texts I answer. All of it. All of it. Then I make a list of things that I'm grateful for. Or I take that list and I write a sentence. I am so grateful that every single thing in my fridge is something that I have picked out on purpose. No one's forcing me to eat something I don't like. I am so grateful that every article of clothing in my closet I wear because I want to. I'm grateful that I live in the city I have chosen. No one's forcing me to stay here. And it gives me a sense of power, right? And then I can look back on the things that I felt powerless about. And like Dr. Lickerman said, it lowers the significance. Because when he goes back to his victim mentality trajectory, he was able to put his bullying in kind of like a shelf. He's like, it wasn't the greatest trauma of my life. It was just another example of my victim mentality. And so therefore, it became just kind of a tile in an overall mosaic and a picture he no longer wants to look at. You know what I mean? And again, there's so much unfairness there. There's so much unfairness. Why the fuck do we have to say that bad things that have happened to us, that happen at the hands of other people, aren't that significant? A phrase that Dr. Phil once said, I love Dr. Phil, is you can be right or you can be happy. Damn. The facts, the biggest of big facts. Ideally, those two things are a perfect circle. They're an overlap Venn diagram, but more often than not, they aren't. If you look at like a fight with your parents, a lot of times you're right. But is this the hill you want to die on? You want to take this to the absolute edge so you can be right. Sometimes right and happy aren't the same. And especially when it comes to getting over trauma, yeah, you can live inside this righteous anger forever. You can. And no one's going to say that you're crazy for doing it, but they will say that you're unhappy. And they will say that that's a waste of life. Because what I've always said about like bullying and, mean girls and stuff is that we live the label. Someone calls you a retard, you feel like a retard for the rest of your life. Someone calls you a slut, You carry that inside you forever. Your parents told you were lazy or worthless or stupid or queer or unlovable, whatever it is. That probably only lasted, if you like actually add up the amount of minutes and seconds someone spent saying that to you, it's probably very short. But we plant those seeds in our mind and then they flower and they live inside ourselves forever. So again, we become our own co-architects of misery. We're the ones keeping them up. We're the ones stoking this fire and keeping those memories alive. And hey, again, I know it's unfair to be like, wait, I'm part of the problem. I'm the victim. I know that. I know that. But don't you want to be happy? Don't you see other things in this world bigger than the payouts you're getting from the victim mentality? I'm not saying you're ever going to look back and be like, I'm glad that happened. But actually, Dr. Lickerman says that's exactly what you should do. I know, unfair still. And he said that the way that he was able to get over his bullying was to reframe it. In that, like, instead of being this incredible trauma, these were growth opportunities. And he said that had that not happened to him, he never would have had the impetus to throw a light on his behavior and the patterns and make the positive changes. He would have gone on being a victim forever. In some capacity, victim dad, victim husband, victim professional, victim son, victim whatever. And it's an exhausting way to live, right? It is such an underdeveloped way to live. And didn't those bullies take enough from us? Didn't those rapists take enough from us? The people who hit us, the abusive parents, haven't they taken enough? At what point do we say, no more? No more. We might not have been able to say it, or if we did, it might not have worked back when it was happening, but we can say it now. And we can say it in our own lives, I'm not going to live like this anymore. I'm not going to live under the specter, this black cloud of bad things that have happened to me. Yes, I deserve the justice and I deserve to let people know that this happened and I deserve to feel bad about it. But I also deserve wonderful things out of life. I also deserve healthy relationships, a mind that is quiet and free from this shit. That's what you deserve more. You deserve to be happy versus right. I know. So all we can do is, we can't change the past, but we can reframe it. Just like that study said about a broken heart. We are going to downplay the significance, so we downplay the trauma. And we're going to play up what we learned, that it was a learning opportunity, a growth opportunity, because then we can move forward, because then we will be free of the fear that it's going to keep happening because we've learned from it. I know what went wrong in this, so I can do this different. If you get in a car accident and you have absolutely no idea what happened, you're always going to be afraid to get in that car. But if you got in a car accident because you're like, I snapped the e-brake on and the car started to spin, you're going to be like, I am not going to do that anymore. And therefore my car will not go into a 360 spin on the middle of the freeway. You're going to feel a lot more confident getting behind the wheel. It's the same with anything else. You can learn from bad situations because you know what? We can't undo them. We can't. We can't make people pay. We can't bring them to justice all the time. There's no one who's going to come riding in on a white horse and save us from the bad things that have happened. It's not going to be a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a parent or even the fucking police. It is going to be ourselves. That's what I learned from my situation. No one was coming to save me. I had to save myself. And from then on, my life became about me. Not pleasing my parents, not like pacifying a boy with a fragile ego or making my friends happy. No. Everything I did for me. Because at the end of the day, I saved me. I had to please me. It's all about me. And it's all about you too. We just have to find the courage to dig deep into that and do the hard work for our own benefit. Because that's all we can do in life. Reframe, adapt, modify, and overcome. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. If, what you guys have done to get over traumatic situations in your past. And we can talk about this like as much as you want to, because I know that this is a lot and I know that this is obviously super difficult and it's not just like, cool, I'm just going to think of it as a good thing. Again, not a good thing, an opportunity for growth. And there's a reason we have the term growing pains. For more, click like and subscribe. And like I said, check out my new podcast, Girl on Top. And if you have a private question and you want to talk one-on-one with me, find me on the Instant Go app at ShallonXO and click chat to get connected right away. I love you guys. Bye, Shallon.